Hello and welcome to Been Watching, where I talk about what I've been watching. This time covering what I watched in July, starting with not the first film I watched this month. I actually really loved the movie I opened the month on, so I'm gonna save that for last. So now you have to watch until the end of the video. Or I guess you can skip to the end and screw up my watch time, but hey, you do you. So let's start off with the second movie I watched this month, Balto. An illness plagues the children of an Alaskan town. When the medicine delivery crashes in the tundra, a dog-wolf mix named Balto takes it upon himself to find the musher and get the medicine to its destination. Balto is a movie that feels like a typical animated feature from the 90s in most aspects, but atypical in others. But of course, where it's most worth noting is where it deviates, so I'll start with one that I didn't like because I liked the movie for the most part, so I'll end on the positives. I didn't like that Balto's family, aka the goose and the two polar bears, leave at the beginning of his journey, or at least after he first sets off into his journey. Now, they are involved in an action scene, so they are not completely useless, but the fact that his family falls back in terms of the narrative left me unsatisfied in their limited role. But I do understand why they did this. Once Balto convenes with the mushers stranded in the tundra, that's a whole other cast of characters for him to interact with. It would be too busy to involve his family alongside that. So even if I critique that point, I understand where it comes from, and I think it's probably a worthy sacrifice, especially since it made way for the other musher dogs, which are quite a joy. But maybe I'm just saying that because I love Star.
You are the most amazing, the most exalted, the most preeminent, the most top drawer.
You what?
I watched this with my girlfriend and she loves him. In fact, a lot of my friends grew up watching this movie. I was kind of an outlier in that I haven't seen this movie until now. And considering Star, I can see how a lot of my friends grew up to like men. Speaking more seriously, the other musher dogs are a huge highlight of the movie, beyond just Star's charm. They are the posse of the antagonist Steel. They kiss up to him and praise him whenever they can, except when he turns his back because they actually don't like Steel. And that's something that stood out to me because these are the characters who bully Balto. Balto is an underdog, half literally under Wolf 2 because he's an outsider, and the mushers bully him, and it helps that they hate Steel, the antagonist, as well, because by the time Balto comes in and becomes a part of their team, saving them and their delivery, well, it means more than if they were just the bully characters. Their distaste for the antagonist means they aren't so shallow, so them siding with Balto by the time they need to has more depth and value. Another thing I liked was the mixed race analogy that's in Balto, half wolf, half dog. I think of this one quote from his father figure goose, Boris, who says,
"Not a dog, not a wolf. All he knows is what he is not."
But yeah, that theme elevated the movie just a little bit too. It also helps that it's really well animated, especially the confrontation with the bear. Even though the movie, I do think, is a bit typical, and, well, I think most people who love it loved it since they were a kid. As for me, I saw it as a decent but good watch. The animation is where it really shines, especially in the action pieces. It's less character drama heavy nearing the end when Balto has to just make it back to town. So a climax like that, even if not super demanding of the character's wants or personality, is still engaging because it's just that well directed of an action scene. I also like Jenna and her gal pals. Jenna helps save Balto from this big bad bear, so that gives her a lot of points even though she also just ends up waiting for Balto to come back. That gets her a lot of points considering she was in a pretty heavy action scene. And also, When the antagonist starts spreading lies about what happened to the mushers, she doesn't trust them. So she's more than just the love interest waiting back in town to kiss Balto. She has a good head on her shoulders and she takes action where it counts, so I liked her too, as well as her cute gal pals. There's also this weird controversy I discovered about Balto, the real life wolf, not the movie, where some people were upset that Balto got a statue because in actuality, another one of the musher dogs did most of the work. But I find it hard to be upset at this. It's more or less a monument to the event and the miraculous saving of all these kids. So I don't mind that Balto got a statue because it's not specifically for Balto in my eyes, it's for the event. Look, the dogs don't know they got a statue. The dog who did most of the work isn't going to be ranting and rioting at the fact that he doesn't have a plaque for him. So with no one really hurt, I'm glad the true facts are out there, but I can't be mad at the statue. I just found that a bit of a funny factoid. And so my girlfriend and I continued our journey with Balto in Balto 2, A Wolf's Quest. Balto's daughter, who appears more wolf than dog, runs away. Chasing after her, Balto stumbles upon a bigger, stupider journey than he bargained for. I was surprised Balto was a parent already. By the start of the second movie, you would expect this by the end of the third movie. But they did it and they ran with the conflict in it. Yeah, well, they ran with it alright. For one thing, as cool as Jenna was in the first movie, even though she didn't do a whole lot, what she did counted in the first movie. Here, she is relegated to the wife waiting back in town, while Balto goes out on the adventure. She was very disappointing. She could have been utilized way better. Also, I guess Alaska isn't always snowy, but the first movie was full of snow. I think the second movie owes it to audiences to at least have a few more patches here and there. It looks mostly unrecognizable visually as a sequel to Balto. Oh, and it goes without saying this is a direct-to-DVD, so the visuals, yeah, they don't match up. But I can't even say the scenario matches up. The first movie was based on true events, and yes, based on true events. It's not completely true because, well, it's about talking wolves and dogs, of course it's not. But it had feet set in reality. This movie does not. Balto 2 deals a lot with prophetic dreams, astral projection messages, entities, and other mystical nonsense. That said, I'm not too a fan of magic in movies anyway. I don't watch fantasies too much, but at least that establishes its own world. By having a movie set somewhat in reality but with mystic elements, it's prone to using the mysticism as a convenient plot device for just whatever it wants. Now, that's not always the case, but it is in Balto 2. Stuff like, aha, Balto should have left this fox tied up on this log because his dream told him to. Yes, a life potentially at risk should have just been not saved at all because of, dreams. And this is a problem with the movie as well as an issue I take with mysticism and storytelling in general. It rewards being illogical. In Mystic Magic Lost Society's land, being an idiot isn't bad, it's whimsical. So they play that out as long as they can until the main characters meet a clan of wolves and the actual plot starts here. Yeah, the rest of the movie before was pretty much just plot buffer. So now that they're at the actual plot, well, it's not much better, but I've talked about this movie more than I should. My girlfriend at least got a kick out of hearing me ranting and raving as we watched it. I was really exasperated. In fact, maybe one time it might be funny to do a little let's watch, but hey, I just have fun watching movies and, well, reacting to them, especially bouncing stuff off my girlfriend, so at least that was one positive about this dismal movie. Next up, we watched the follow-up direct-to-DVD sequel, Balto 3, Wings of Change. A bush plane flies into town, the pilot offering faster mail delivery. But to Balto's son, Cody, and his fellow postal dogs, this is a threat to their job. They must prove themselves still a valid role in the community. It's a step up, not like it's hard to from Balto 2. But the thing about this movie is that at least at the beginning, the stories, the plots, feel like Balto the TV pilot. The plots aren't that dramatic at first, at least. Especially one where the goose Boris has this oddly sexualized girlfriend that he lies to about loving to fly when really he's afraid to, and this lying to your girlfriend plot just feels ripped right out of every sitcom ever. It's so trite. Also just the weird concept of giving Boris a girlfriend in the third movie, like yeah, I really wanted to see this guy get hose. Once again, Jenna does little more than sit back in town while Balto does all the work outside of it.
No, this is man's work.
Oh yeah, another thing odd about these sequels is that none of them carry on the original cast of the first movie, and I don't mean the actors, I mean the lovable side characters like the dog mushers, or Jenna's gal pals. Of course, Boris and the polar bears come back, but it feels odd seeing characters you liked in the first movie, let alone the mushers who were very important in the first movie, just absent here. I guess another plus from Balto 2, it's really snowy, so it does feel like a Balto sequel. Another thing I'll compliment is a surprising nuance it has towards the conflict. Cody hates the plane because it risks his job. He won't be a postal musher if the plane replaces him. So they have this race against the plane and the plane crashes. Cody cares little about the pilot's safety, caring more about his own job, and Balto has at him. I like the father-son conflict in this scene, and one of the things Balto says regarding the overall conflict with the plane surprised me. It's not a story about, hurrah, we saved the postal mushers, when really as an audience, you would know that, well, the plane would take their job eventually anyway. But it doesn't even play that short-term victory even for the kids watching. Balto says to Cody that they're going to build a better, faster plane anyway, and that at the end of the day, there's nothing much he can do. So I like that Balto participated in the race, mainly for his son. It's not like racing against the technology. He raced pretty much to secure his son's job just a little bit longer, so that made his actions in the movie a little more meaningful. I was surprised that this movie had the nuance of the conflict isn't the plane, the conflict is progression. But that's just about 1 minute of the movie. I don't expect you racing to get your hands on the DVD just for this 1 minute of a good scene. The rest of it is, as you expect, meh. But anyways, we were really in a Balto mood. If there were a Balto 4, my girlfriend and I would have watched it. We were on this train riding it to the sunset, even if it meant falling off a cliff, which compared to Balto 2 sounds like an upgrade. But where would we land falling off that cliff? Well, Alpha and Omega. A wolf, Humphrey, wants to hump, Kate, but she's an Alpha and he's an Omega. Or is it the other way around? Who cares? They're taken away and must get back home. You probably remember this movie from that one kid who watched this in theaters and was never the same after. His eyes empty, staring into a wall. He lingers in your thoughts while you wonder, did he ever get the right help? What's he doing nowadays? For one, the movie looks ugly. I can only imagine what it was like watching it in 3D with these PS2 FMV monstrosities jumping at your face. But the biggest issue is its story. While there are two characters who actually have a better romance than the main characters, we're stuck with the main characters. And their issue is that the plot is completely structured wrong around their romance. Now, this is a romance movie, but also a road trip movie. So you know what the end point of the movie will be. These two have to get along, so you know what it has to build up to. The characters finally get along, and the problem is solved. And while it does do that, the issue is that the rest of the movie isn't centered around this not getting along conflict until they get along. In a movie like this, it should have been the characters argue and fight and get each other into more trouble. But instead, the conflict is perpetuated usually by Humphrey's own stupidity. So the actual culmination of the arc feels disconnected from the plot points that preceded it. And yeah, there's the silly dancing wolf scene, but after the first act, it's not even so bad it's good. I guess I'll cover the TV shows I watched with my girlfriend this month. We finally finished 101 Dalmatians The Series, which we had started years ago. It's a fun, goofy, slapstick 90s cartoon with really enjoyable main characters, my favorites being Spot and Cadpig. If there's any negative I have with the series, just to be fair, well, there's an odd number of episodes that pad out the runtime by being in part or all clip show. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I can't think of that many shows with one season. Well, okay, they do the season a bit weird here, but I can't think of that many shows where there are several clip show episodes. That was weird watching this. But really, for the most part, it was lots of fun, and I admire that they had some full-length 22-minute episodes. Another thing I liked about it is that it has a certain disregard for the source material. Yeah, it's not even set in London like the original movie or the live-action movie that was quite timely to this. Yeah, it's set in America. Quite an odd choice. But I like that as a liberty it took. It shows that they were just willing to have fun with the premise, and, well, between this and that other Dalmatians show, it makes me realize that 101 Dalmatians is pretty loose in terms of how you can adapt it. Not that this is an adaptation, I guess the more appropriate wording is spin-off, but We also watched the new Amazing World of Gumball, or I guess Weirdly Wonderful World of Gumball. My girlfriend's a really big fan of that show, and I like it too, but we weren't so optimistic for reviving the show, mainly because of Hollywood's trend of regurgitating old media. But we gave it a fair shot. Half of it was pretty bad, and the other half was good. And I don't mean, oh, we'll take this episode from this, take it. No, like, almost a hard line down the middle. The first half isn't worth watching, but the second half, I would give it a watch. Well, guys, here's the main event. The movie I watched this month that reminded me why I love movies. This is definitely going to be one of my favorites I've watched this year. Tamala 2010, A Punk Cat in Space. Tamala leaves Cat Earth for Orion, but hitting an asteroid, she makes an emergency landing on planet Q, where she meets a boy named Michelangelo. And there's not much else worth saying. Tamala 2010 is an art house movie. Very avant-garde. I usually don't watch art house films. I'm selectively into all that abstract metaphor stuff. But one thing I liked about this movie is that it's not all that. It's pretty human. It has several laughs in it. And I think that's where watching art house films loses me. I don't like the pretense of having all these abstractions and stuff and being so profound and deep. Although I do like that in Tamala and several other movies. I do like profound and deepness, but I think that it's just helpful to laugh at yourself. And Tamala has that profoundness and deepness of art house films while also feeling human and knowing how silly it is. Plot is rather ancillary for most of the movie. That's not to say it's unimportant though. In fact, I fell in love with this because of its world and how it delved into its oddities. Tamala's such an unconventional character, let alone protagonist. And also, I really loved her relationship with Michelangelo. In fact, I just really love Michelangelo in general. I won't spoil too much of it though because, well, I love this movie and I think you should watch it on your own. And I know I always say this, but I do want to give a longer scripted review of this one day, whenever I get back to those. Sorry if I'm keeping some of you guys waiting on that, by the way. I'm kind of just figuring out life stuff in the background, but no worries though. But back to the movie though. It has a great rhythm, it's mesmerizing like a music video, and the unique visuals add to it. Speaking of music, that's a huge part of the production of this movie. The people who made this movie are a mysterious group named TOL. They worked in the music industry and also did the music for this movie, which, beyond the weirdness that is this movie, the music is just as unique sounding in its own right. After watching this, I just wanted to pop on the soundtrack and listen to it all over again. It's animated with Adobe Flash, and you can tell, but that's not a negative. It's a very limited animation. It's an indie movie, of course. But it's good looking Flash, especially for 2002 and I think one guy animating it. This is also a point where tech limitations converge with style. Yes, the animation is limited and like I said, you can tell it's Adobe Flash, but there's a certain charm to that. It reminds me of how now we appreciate how survival horror games in the PS1 looked. Speaking of games, I couldn't help but think of the Silver Case watching this. It's so abstract with an ambiguous story until indulging you with some exposition. The character back and forths that feel almost incoherent also reminded me of the game. Also, the Postal Service being kind of like a secret police is another odd detail that resembles the Silver Case's sequel, The 25th Ward. Hey, I've been too negative in this video. I can't help the movies I watched, but I gotta spread the love when talking about this movie. So if you love Tamala, give The Silver Case a shot. And if you love The Silver Case, I don't know how many visual novel fans are watching this. I imagine I always feel like one of the few. It's a niche fandom, I suppose. But if you love this game, definitely watch Tamala. It took a long time from 2002, but it finally got an official release in America thanks to Deaf Crocodile, who included some really rich extras with this, one of which I feel a little bit conflicted on, not in terms of a negative way, but just in terms of a personal way. I'm really tempted to listen to this film historian's commentary track on the movie, where I hear that they illuminate a lot of the hidden symbolism in the movie, and I'm hesitant to do so. One of my favorite art house films is David Lynch's Eraserhead. Now, that film is a lot more abstract than this movie, but one thing that I like about how Lynch handled it is there's this one interview.
Believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
Why elaborate on that?
No, I won't.
And I love that because he's encouraging the watching of his film. You know how when you look at a Rorschach test and someone says they see a bird and then all you can see is a bird? David Lynch is protecting Eraserhead's connection with the viewer. He is protecting Eraserhead being seen as how the viewer sees it. So I don't think I'll listen to it, at least not until I watch it again and maybe get some of my ideas on paper, because I love the personal connections movies have with an individual viewer. Another thing I love about the Blu-ray is that it includes two other Tamala shorts, starting with Tamala on Parade. Tamala on Parade is less coherent than the original movie. In fact, there's not really much of a story. It's kind of a series of ads and just... Well, if I compared the first movie to a music video, this is mostly just music video. Or at least with that appeal. It appeals to the auditory and the visual, but there's not much of a plot going on. And then there's Tamala's Wild Party, which looks way different. It's animated by Studio 4 Degrees Celsius, or I assume most people just call it Studio 4C. It's the same studio that animates a lot of Yuasa's work, such as Mind Game. And you can immediately tell. I love their sorta sketchy style, and it's fun to see Tamala look this way. Now, these short stories sometimes have the abstract weirdness that Tamala is known for, but these are more coherent than the movie. They're fun shorts, and I love seeing more of the characters and that world. There's also another short not included on this Blu-ray. I think that's because it's a collaboration with the WWF. No, not the Wrestling Federation, the eco-friendly group. And that one's also good. There are some abstract weirdness, as I guess I've coined it now, but it's more overt. It's probably the most overt Tamala has ever been because this is an environmental PSA. And after showing the destruction of Earth, it has one of the most blatant messages I've ever seen in a PSA. Wake up or die. Like, oh my god, you gotta respect them for just being upfront and saying it. The last interesting thing on this Blu-ray I'll mention is a trailer for Tamala 2030, a sequel 20 years in the making. It's premiering at this film festival in Montreal like next month. I wish I could be there, but I'll try to be there when it's in theaters in 2026 because Deaf Crocodile was cool enough to work something out to where this will have a theatrical release. Probably a selective one, but one I hope to be in the seats of. So those were the movies I watched in July. I'm sorry it was a bit on the negative side. I know I can't help it, but I don't like being the negative guy. But on the upside, I watched a movie that I loved, one of my favorite movies that I've seen maybe in 5 years. I love this movie, and I'm glad to spread the love. So if you watch this movie, tell me what you think. Tell me if you want to watch it, or tell me if you have any interesting suggestions. Tell me what you may have watched this month, or what do you think of anything I watched this month. But regardless, thank you so much for tuning in, and I really mean it. I really appreciate any love for any of my videos. So, see ya and take care.